Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for making the time to join us for this webinar regarding the implementation of ecoinvent EN15804 and SimaPro. For those of you joining our webinar sessions for the first time, welcome. For those of you who've attended more sessions, welcome back. Always nice to see some familiar names in the registrations. So as you know, ecoinvent has provided this specific system model for a while now, but this is really the first version we are providing to our SimaPro users, so we're really excited about that. And mostly we hope that you will find it valuable for your work. And before we start, please note that the session is being recorded, and the recording will be made available on the SimaPro Help Center. And mostly, yeah, just feel free to drop in your questions anytime in the question box, and we will be sure to address them during the session. So usually I give a little bit of information about PRAY. This time I just really want to focus on some of the statistics we are proud of. So we have partners in more than 24 countries. We're serving more than 10,000 SimaPro users worldwide. And we're just based in Amersfoort, in a little city in the Netherlands. So we're really grateful for your continued support and use of SimaPro. And I just want to say we always welcome your feedback on how we can improve the software, what kind of data and message you are missing. So please always feel free to drop us a line. You can reach us at support@simapro.com or any of our channels on our website. Always happy to hear from you guys. And now to introduce our speakers for today. So welcome Enrico and Harry. Enrico is an environmental engineer, holds a PhD in civil engineering, and his work has really focused on lifecycle assessment during various life stages of buildings. He has also developed multiple environmental product declarations, for example, for the French, Dutch, and Swedish initiatives. Currently, he is a project manager at ecoinvent, where he helps maintain and improve the ecoinvent database. He also provides support to database users and data providers. So thank you, Enrico, for collaborating on this session, and really happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And from the PRAY side, I'm happy to be joined by my colleague Harry van Ewijk, who is our product and support specialist. Harry might be familiar to a lot of the people at the audience here. He is an LCA expert with really extensive knowledge and experience in the building and construction sector. And he has been quite involved with our database implementation team in providing, in this project basically, to provide the data for the user. So great to have you here, Harry.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks, Ruben.
So here's a little bit of what you can expect the coming hour. We will start off with Enrico. He'll give some background on the new system model, even a little bit back with what is a unit process, the various system models in ecoinvent, and specifically dig deeper into this EN15804 system model. He will highlight also what are the differences between the regular cutoff and this system model, and highlight some of the advantages for users. Then we'll switch back to our SimaPro team. I'll give you a quick idea of how you can access the data, how you can download and install it, and then turn things over to Harry, who will explain about the impact assessment method that has been developed specifically with this database, and give you some modeling tips and indicators to help with modeling, and also give you a quick tour so you can really see how it looks like in SimaPro, and yeah, show you all the things that we've discussed. And hopefully we have enough time for Q&A. So like I mentioned before, please keep these questions going.
Okay, good. Can you see that, right?
Yes, all looks good.
Okay. So first of all, thank you, Ruba, for the presentation. Thanks for everybody joining this webinar. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and let's try to talk about a little bit EN15804 system model and how ecoinvent can help SimaPro users and EPD developers. So before talking about the EN15804 system model, let's talk a little bit about the ecoinvent association. We are a non-for-profit association. We are dedicated to promoting the availability of high-quality data for sustainability assessment worldwide. ecoinvent association has been founded around 20 years ago by 5 Swiss research institutes. Currently, we are made of around 70 people, and we are the publisher of the ecoinvent database. The database itself is a global library of human activities and includes thousands of processes alongside the value chain of the several industrial sectors. This database is updated yearly and is trusted by more than 8,000 licenses and users from more than 80 countries. So today, before targeting the EN15804 system model, we will discuss a little bit in general what are unit processes in ecoinvent, the system model in ecoinvents. Then we will have a focus on the EN15804 system model, and we will describe the main differences between the cutoff and the EN15804 system model. Lastly, we will describe the advantages for our users. So what is a unit process in ecoinvent? A unit process in ecoinvent is a human activity, so it represents a human activity and the exchange both with the environment and with the technosphere. So the exchange from and to the environment, they are called elementary exchange. And they represent, for example, when we talk about exchange from the environment, the natural resource extraction, while when we talk about exchanges to the environment, we talk about, for example, emissions to land, soil, air, and so on. An activity is also made with exchanges from and to the technosphere. These are called intermediate exchange. So when an activity uses a transformation coming from the technosphere, this is also called the intermediate exchange. And the output, they can be classified between reference product and byproduct wastes. Now, let's take a minute to talk about the fact that the classification between reference product and byproduct waste is really activity dependent. So for example, if we have as reference product waste, as reference product paper for the activity paper production, that paper, that exchange can also be a byproduct waste if we are talking about another activity. Now, a unit process in ecoinvent is not only data and exchange from and to the technosphere and environment, but also metadata. So metadata are important because of a data set without a proper description is really difficult to use. This is why ecoinvent tailors every data set that we produce in order to provide geographical, temporal, and technological comments. Geographical comments are important because they give our user information to understand if the geographical region meet the scope of their study. And in a similar way, also the temporal comment gives the period during which the data have been collected, and the technological comment gives information about the process that is represented in that unit process, and also gives details about the technology that has been investigated. On top of geographical, temporological, and technological comment, we also have additional information that are important for our users to understand if a specific unit process meet their study, the objective of their study. So we provide information about how data have been collected. So methodological information, uncertainty information, the precision of a certain data set, and so on. On top of that, we need to take a moment also to appreciate the fact that when you have an access to an ecoinvent database, you don't have an access to standing alone data sets, but you have access to an interconnected system. For example, let's take as an example transformation activity here in this figure represented with green boxes and market activities. Now, the transformation activity A needs to enter in a market, and the market activity are able to connect several transformation activities, so to create links between technosphere human activities. In this case, in this example, the transformation activity B, C, and D have access to an output of a transformation activity A through market activity. This is true throughout the entire database of ecoinvent. And because of this, the data sets do not stand alone, but they are interconnected through the supply chain that works thanks to the market activities themselves. Because of that, the ecoinvent database is transparent and modular. So when you have access to ecoinvent database, you have access also to the entire supply chain that is linked to a certain transformation activity. This is particularly important because of this modularity allow our users to trust in the transparency. You can see exactly the magnitude and the type of flows that are into a certain unit process, along with the metadata that describe this activity. And also you have access to an interconnected system. This create a comprehensive environment where, for example, a technological update of our database reverberates throughout every single unit process in ecoinvent. Now, this interconnection between unit process is really important, is nice to have because it provides full transparency, but also raises another problem. And the problem is about, in terms of modeling, the system boundaries. So it's difficult to understand if everything is so linked, is so interconnected, where a certain unit process finish and when another one starts. Because of that, we need to tackle right now the system boundary, the system models in ecoinvent that defines exactly the boundaries of the unit process. So the linking between unit processes. With classic ecoinvent license, you have access to three system models: allocation, cutoff by classification, which is usually referred to cutoff, then allocation at the point of substitution, also called APOS, and substitution consequential long-term. Now, when we talk about the cutoff system model, this is the most used in the private sector, since consequential and APOS are mostly used in research. Now, the cutoff system model is classified by the principle, by two principles. The first of them is called the polluter's pay. So we have a certain unit process, we have a certain activity that takes some inputs from the technosphere, some resources from the environment. It gives some, of course, products to the technosphere and some emission, but also produces some waste. The polluter's pay principle in cutoff says that the activity is also responsible, so it takes the burden of the waste treatment of this waste. The other principle is that principle of the recyclable material, meaning that if this activity produce a recyclable, so a waste, let's say, that can be recycled, then the cutoff point is exactly in the moment we have the production of the recyclable material. This is both similar and different to the EN15804 system model that we are going to explain right now. So additional, the EN15804 system model is an additional system model that is separately available and now implemented also in SimaPro. And this system model has been built thinking about environmental product declaration and users that needs to have a database that is compliant to EN15804, but also ISO 21930 and ISO 14025 that are important for type 3 environmental declaration. Now, what's different between EN15804 and the cutoff system model? We have a major important detail that determine the difference between the cutoff and the EN15804. So first of all, EN15804 also aligns with polluter's pay principle, so nothing different compared to what we've seen before. The consumers of recycled products also receive them burden-free, but what's really different is the use of the Directive 2008/98 EC of the European Parliament and of the Council. So the EN15804 system model needs to comply with the so-called Waste Framework Directive that determines the end of waste criteria. The end of waste criteria is a stage that, well, the moment we produce a waste, the end of waste stage needs to meet 4 specific conditions. So we have the production of the waste, this waste needs to be treated, and this treatment stops. So our waste stops to be waste in the moment that this substance or object is commonly used for a specific purpose, there is an existing market or a demand for it, and it fulfills the technical requirements for its intended purpose and meets existing legislation. Finally, its use will not lead to an overall adverse environment or human health impacts. So this is not the only difference between EN15804 and the cutoff system model, but also the fact that to allow our users to have to develop EPDs, the system model also reports 13 core environmental impact indicators according to EN15804 plus A2, but also the parameter describing environmental impacts according to EN15804 plus A1. This is particularly important the moment we want to create an EPD that can be comparable also with old EPDs. Also, we have 6 additional impacts regarding categories and indicators, 9 parameters describing the resource use, 3 environmental information describing the waste, 4 environmental information categories describing the output flows, and finally, 2 information categories describing the biogenic carbon content at the factory gate. A small parenthesis about the biogenic carbon, as you see in the text of these slides, the EN15804 is not also compliant with ISO 21930 or EN15804 plus A2, but there are other relevant standards for developing an EPD, like the 16970 and for the biogenic carbon 16449. Now, let's talk about in practice the differences between a cutoff system model and the EN15804. So as we have seen before, in the cutoff system model, we have an activity. The moment this activity produces a recyclable product, then the cutoff point is exactly at the recyclable production. While if this activity produces a waste, then also the waste treatment is responsibility of the activity, following the polluter's pay principle. In the EN15804, there is not a strict distinction between recyclable and waste. The moment we have an output flow that is not the reference product or a byproduct, this is classified as a waste category. Now, this waste need to be treated following the polluter's pay principle, but if it's possible to reach the end of waste stage, then the EN15804 system model needs to consider also the waste treatment necessary to meet the end of waste stage. Let's try to understand this better with an example. So we have an activity, building construction hostel, that gives as a reference product a building hostel. This unit process also produces a waste, aluminium scrap post-consumer. Now, this waste needs to be treated, needs to be collected, sorted, cleaned, and pressed. And it will give, as a result, another exchange called aluminium scrap post-consumer prepared for melting. This exchange will enter another treatment activity, so treatment of aluminium scrap post-consumer prepared for recycling at refiner, giving, as a result, aluminium cast alloy. Now, in the cutoff system model, aluminium scrap post-consumer is a recyclable, meaning that the boundary of our system stops over there. So as soon as we have aluminium scrap post-consumer production. In the EN15804, aluminium scrap is still classified as a waste. It didn't reach yet the end of waste stage. To reach the end of waste stage, it needs to be collected, sorted, cleaned, and pressed. That means that the cutoff point needs to extend a little bit further in line and to include another treatment. So treatment for aluminium scrap post-consumer by collecting, sorting, cleaned, and pressing. Let's see another example. We have a unit process called fish curing small fish. And this unit process gives as a result, so the reference product is fish curing small fish. But we also have another waste exchange that this unit process produces. Which is called waste packaging glass unsorted. Now, waste package glass unsorted is taken by another activity, a market activity in this case, market for waste packaging glass unsorted, that will also need to consider transportation. In the moment we consider the cutoff system model, the waste packaging glass unsorted is a recyclable. That means that the cutoff point is exactly as soon as we produce the waste packaging glass unsorted. What does that mean? From the perspective of market for waste packaging glass unsorted, the waste packaging glass entered that system, so entered the market of waste packaging glass burden-free. And that market of waste packaging glass unsorted will always only account for the impacts of the transportation. In the EN15804 is not the case because of the waste packaging glass unsorted before reaching the end of waste, we need also a further treatment. It needs to be collected and sorted in order to give waste packaging glass sorted. That means that the cutoff point is exactly right after we have the waste packaging glass sorted production. Now, from the point of view of market for waste packaging glass unsorted, we can see that this can give a pretty different results compared to what we have seen before. Because of right now, we don't need to account only for the transportation, but also for the collection and the sorting of the glass. As a matter of fact, if we consider the impact climate change fossil in the cutoff system model, the GWP is less than half of the impact for the same unit process, so for the same market for waste packaging glass unsorted compared to EN15804. So let's have a zoom right now about the advantages of our user when having access to ecoinvent and to the EN15804 system model. First of all, you still have access to the transparency and the modularity of the ecoinvent database. Second, EN15804 system model is in agreement with the relevant standards for EPD developments. So, for example, EN15804 plus A1, but also plus A2, the ISO 21930, ISO 14025, also technical revision 16970, and for biogenic carbon 16449. So it includes, because of that, comprehensive environmental indicators that are useful for EPD developments and for writing of life cycle assessment reports for the EPD development. And it reflects the end of waste stage. It is formulated in order to meet the requirements of the Directive 2008/98 EC. Lastly, this system model, in the same way of every other system model in ecoinvent, is annually updated. Now, let's take a moment to focus on the importance of this annually update of the ecoinvent database, because the ecoinvent database is interconnected and we do not have standing alone unit process. The moment we have an annual update, we also have an update of all the background processes that are used in a supply chain of our database. Meaning, for example, that we update annually, for example, chemical production, fuels, electricity mix. And even if a specific data set is not directly updated, because the background system model gets updated, this allows ecoinvent to keep high temporal and technological representativeness throughout the entire database. Last but not least, with an ecoinvent license, there is also access to ecoquery. Ecoquery is a web interface that provides by the ecoinvent database and allow our user to explore and extract environmental data as well as environmental information through our metadata. So it's possible to search for a specific activity, a product, or a CAS number, to filter across different sectors, geography, or activity types. And of course, it also allows the users that have an EN15804 license to have access to EN15804 system model. So you have still access to the documentation, so information about temporal, technological, geographical representativeness, or also what's included, what's excluded in a certain unit process, precision of a data set, how certain data have been collected. You have access to the exchange. As we have seen before, ecoinvent is completely transparent and modular, so you can see the amount of each exchange included in each unit process, and then you can dig in. So for example, in this case, you want to look for bauxite in that case, and you can click for in ecoquery market for bauxite, and then you can expand the supply chain in each unit process. Lastly, you have access, of course, to EN15804 indicators and impact assessment. So in this case, you can see the core environmental indicators for the developing an EPD according to EN15804 plus A2. Thank you a lot for your time. Here you can have some QR codes and some links in order to have access to the knowledge base in ecoinvent. And if you already have an ecoinvent license, also to have access to reports describing system model or EN15804 system model. That said, I thank you a lot for your time, for your attention, and I will stop sharing the screen.
Thank you, Enrico. We have a bunch of questions. Maybe we can handle a few at the moment. Maybe one question is a bit more general, but the question is, when will you add natural rubber data to ecoinvent, as it is a quite popular material, but still not available? I don't know if you have any insights on that, or we can check it offline.
No, unfortunately not. But I can definitely take note of it. And so natural rubber, yes, we will work on that. There are so many implementations that we need to do, and definitely natural rubber is one of those.
Okay, thank you. And one question from the audience is this system model supported or recommended by program operators like IBU? I don't know if you're aware of that.
If this system model is recommended by
the program operators like IBU.
So yeah, IBU, so the German program operator, has a preference toward Gabi because they also are implemented by the OCOBAUDAT background database. So because of that, they try to have, of course, the most consistent baseline, so the most consistent background. So they have a preference in using especially electricity mix from Gabi database, but I also remember that ecoinvent can be used in the IBU, so you can check in the program operator, and it's written that it's possible to use ecoinvent, but for the IBU program operator, the preference is Gabi.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. And another question is, if all the data sets from the regular cutoff system model are available in the EN15804, or are there some discrepancies there?
If what? Sorry.
If in terms of the scope of the data, let's say, does the regular kind of cutoff allocation and the cutoff EN15804, do they match in terms of the processes provided, the list of processes?
Well, in terms of process, yes, the technology is not different. What's different is how much extended is the boundary of the system model. So, for example, as we've seen before, like if we have a recyclable production in cutoff, the impact, let's say, stops there. In the EN15804, we need to be sure that that material, which is still classified as a waste, reaches the end of waste stage. So the boundaries of the system models are different. Yeah.
No, that's clear. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop with the questions just now, and there are a lot coming in, so keep them coming. We're just going to park them for a bit, and after some of them actually will be addressed, I think, when we share our slides, and then I'll make myself presenter for now. All right. I'd just like to start off with a quick poll, just to see. I know some of you attending here are already practitioners, of course. So what kind of data are you already using? So which version of the database are you currently using? Are you already using the latest ecoinvent one? Are you using an older one of ecoinvent, the 3.9.1, which we have not provided ourselves, but is available? Are you using the regular cutoff, or you're using another database? So just curious about the audience. We'll give a few more seconds. So looking at the results, 53% is using the cutoff by classification, the version 3.10. followed by 3.9.1. A small percentage of the audience is already using the EN15804 version, and some of them are using alternative databases. So thank you for your input, and maybe this webinar will help clarify and show if it would be interesting for you as well. I'm going to continue with the slides now. So before we show you how it looks in SimaPro, I thought we can give you a quick look. If you're already interested in getting the ecoinvent database, how do you go about it? So there's more information on our website. The URL is on the screen. You can request a quote directly from the website, or you can contact my colleagues at sales@simapro.com. So as we might have mentioned, it is this model comes at an additional license fee. So if you already have an existing ecoinvent license, it is around 600 euros per user per year for the first user, and any additional user, which for example, our SimaPro multi-user, that comes at 450 euros per year. And for our educational market, for the PhD students, it's 300 euros. So again, this is if you already have an existing license, and if you are new to SimaPro and already want to purchase everything together, it's basically added to the regular price of your ecoinvent license. So it starts at around 3,800. So if you want this model as well, it becomes 4,400 euros for the first user, and an additional 3,800 for extra users. So this pricing is also for our perpetual licensing for ecoinvent and SimaPro. For our subscription users is another pricing, and it's a bit cheaper than this. So please, if you're interested to know, hey, if I want to add it now, how much does it cost, or things like that, you can always, again, mention, as I mentioned, contact our sales team or your SimaPro partner, and they will be able to give you a more accurate estimation. Since we've provided the system model as ecoinvent 3.10, it's important to realize that you should already be using ecoinvent 3.10 with SimaPro 9.6. So the version we provide is technically not compatible with older versions of SimaPro, so you need to update to SimaPro 9.6 at least, and then continue using it. Yeah, I think that's it for this slide. So once you purchase the data, we provide you with a unique link where you can download the data, and the file also includes the relevant ecoinvent report in terms of background documentation, in addition to an extensive user instructions. So it's not only about downloading and installing, but it includes also more information about the method that's included, and excuse me, and some of the modeling tips, which Harry will also cover in this webinar. Once you install the database, you will see that we do offer it in the versions you are used to. So there will be a system library and a unit library. And there will be a separate library for the specific method for EN15804. So the first option is you download the database, install it, and you're good to go. So you can start by creating, a new project, and you're fine. And this ensures, of course, full compliance. Everything's in a separate database. But as we saw, a lot of you are already using the regular cutoff or older versions of ecoinvent. So most probably you still have an additional step, and that is to import this database, which you just downloaded, into your working database, for example, the SimaPro professional database. So in that case, then you will have the list of libraries, the regular cutoff, EN15804, and all your projects in one database. To make your life a bit easier, we provide also, when you download this database, we provide a replacement file. You're used to probably using these replacement files to replace obsolete links between different ecoinvent versions. In this case, the technicality is the same in terms of in the sense that you can use it to update links in your project, but from the cutoff library to the EN15804 library. So you can do that with the help of these files. And here I include a link with the instructions to a nice video that shows the instructions, but for now I'll move on to Harry.
Yeah, thank you, Ruba. I will take over from here. I think it's good to start with our implementation of the methods in the SimaPro, because for the inventory data, we, like with the other system models, we just took the ecoinvent data, so that will be familiar. But I think the methods, or the method, I have to say, needs a bit more attention. First of all, it consists of it's only the EN15804 plus A2 that we provide with this ecoinvent database. Of course, there is also the A1 in an older. If you already have a SimaPro database, there is a version of this method. But since it is already since 2019 that this A2 standard is there, we decided to only include with this database the A2 method, also to avoid confusion. And so this method contains the core and the environmental indicators. So from the standard EN15804, that will be table 3 and 4. They are based on the European Commission's Joint Research Center characterization factors that you might know of the environmental footprint. And well, we included normalization and weighting from the same environmental footprint, but yeah, it might be good to know that it is not in the EN15804 standard. The standard stops after the characterization. Furthermore, there is the EN15804 lifecycle inventory indicators. And yeah, you see here that from table 6, that is the parameters describing resource use. Table 7 is other environmental information describing waste categories. And table 8 is environmental information describing output flows. That's just the titles of the tables as they are. I'll show you in a bit what it is, and Enrico also paid attention to it just before. And we added from table 9 the information describing the biogenic carbon content at the factory gate. We had some discussion about that. Should we or should we not include, because it is very specific, and probably for a one-off EPD, you have to investigate what it is and just include it. But if you do large amounts of EPDs, it might be handy to have it in your model. So that's the reason why we included it. And it might already be good to tell, and I'll show you in a bit, but that in SimaPro, it is the TAP damage assessment, although it's actually not damage assessment, but the TAP damage assessment displays all needed for EN15804 EPDs. So from the next slide, then we have some screenshots already from how it looks like in the method. So under the damage category, you find here all the environmental impact categories that are part of the EN15804 plus A2. So that is the climate change total, but also the fossil, biogenic, and land use change separately. And well, I will not read it out loud. So maybe more interesting is, and that is below the dashed line, we decided to use a dashed line to make a clear separation between the environmental impact categories and the life cycle inventory indicators, because of, and probably most of you know, but it is totally different things, these indicators and the environmental impact categories. It is the environmental impact categories that is really an indication for the environmental impact, and the indicators, well, they might be, of course, also an indication for environmental impact, but it is really a separate category of indicators, and it is not necessarily yeah, one-on-one connected to environmental impact. And it's also good to know, or yeah, most of you will know that yeah, if you show them all and you take them all as let's say serious as one each of them, yeah, and there will also be kind of double counting. So the environmental impact categories, in my opinion, are really the important ones, and the indicators are yeah, like it says, indicators. Yeah, there are some, there's much more to say, but we thought, let's take these 6 indicators to pay some attention to, because if you do a calculation with SimaPro and the EN15804 ecoinvent library, out of the box, there will be zeros or no results for some categories. And yeah, it might be good to explain a bit, well, they are mentioned here. The use of renewable primary energy resources used as raw materials is typically something that you can only assess for your product. So it is really something that is in your LCA model. And of course, if once you know that that a certain product, and suppose it is a one-on-one, an ecoinvent product is your product, then ecoinvent supplies, and I will show in a bit, the information that you need to include in your modeling to come to the right results. And it works in a way that yeah, it might be better to show that a bit later. And like said, the last 2 are about biogenic carbon, one for the products and one for the packaging. Yeah, so this is yeah, still in this PowerPoint presentation, but already showing how it looks like in SimaPro, and that's probably yeah, looks familiar if you know the other system models, because maybe you wouldn't know the distance immediately. But if we look a bit further, then you see on the top line where in SimaPro there are the outputs to Technosphere products and co-products. You will see that the command field is yeah, containing the information. Yeah, so that is now in the green box, and there you have all the information you need to do a proper modeling of these indicators. So yeah, the information in this command field is as ecoinvent supplies it with the product, so with this process. And yeah, for instance, in this case, you will see that that there are, well, it's very exact, but we will take this as an input in the example I will show you in a bit. But you see here that the biogenic carbon content of the packaging in this case is 0 kilogram, simply because there is no packaging with this product yet. So you need, of course, to do your modeling. And in the example I will show you, I thought of modeling a whole EN15804 LCA, including all the modules under A, B, C, and module D as well. I think it's much too complex, so I will just show what you have to do for a product. So let's say from the factory gate, what you need to do to get the right indicators from that. So yeah, I think it's time to indeed have a look in SimaPro, and I can do the presentation. So I will take over, and I guess you're all seeing my screen now. And let me see. Yeah, so let's start with the methods. So if I open the method, I think it is important to pay some attention to this general tab. It is overlooked by many of our users, but yeah, it's actually with every method we supply with SimaPro that the command field under the tab General with the methods contains most of the information with that method. So it includes the source and also if there is, of course, this is version 1 of this method, but if there are next versions, it will also show what has been changed compared to the previous version. So there is a version history and also the important adaptations. So in this case, and actually it is already in this specific method as supplied on the website of the Joint Research Center, but like probably most of you know, is that the difference compared to the environmental footprint is that the environmental footprint, at least in version 3.1 and until version 3.1, neglected the uptake of carbon dioxide and the emission from biogenic material, while the EN15804 requires to declare the uptake and the emission where it takes place. So yeah, that is included here. Then we go to the tab characterization. Yeah, and what I just want to show you not all the impact categories, but what is important here is that you see a part 1 and a part 2. Well, you can forget about it right away, but that had to do with previous limitations in our SimaPro software. More important probably is that the website where the characterization factors are downloaded from distinguishes inorganics and organics when it comes to toxicity, both for ecotoxicity and human toxicity. And we copied that in this one-on-one in this method. And like I said, we used the damage assessment category to provide all the lifecycle impact assessment categories and also the lifecycle inventory indicators at the lower part here of the screen. And this will provide you all the information you need for your EPDs. Yeah, so if I close this one and I go to the processes, yeah, I just took the example that I also took in the manual with this method. If I do a calculation, and I took a unit process, so it will take a little while, but if I do a calculation, let's say out of the box, then you will see that after the calculation has taken place and the whole complex network that Enrico told you about, all the unit processes are interconnected. They are all calculated now in the background, and they will then present you the result. If, of course, if you want a quick result, if you don't need to deep dive into these data, then you can also choose for the system process, because it will provide you more or less right away the results, the characterized results and the indicators. Yeah, so what we see here, and I won't pay attention to the upper part of the screen here, but we'll go to the lower part. So that is below the dashed line. What you see here is that for PERM, so and also for the non-renewable energy used as material, there are no values here. And the same goes for the non-renewable secondary fuels used, and also for components for reuse and for the 2 biogenic carbon content categories, indicators, I should say. Maybe also good to already, maybe you noticed that for the energy categories, there are 2 times the same values. So what you see here is the primary energy used as energy and the renewable and also the non-renewable, that they have in the used as energy and the total have the same value here. And that has to do with the way we had to model. So it will only provide the correct results after the adaptation that I will show you in a bit. So let's go. Yes, I will close this window. So if we open this process, and you see here the properties I just showed in the presentation already. What I did, I made a reference to this particular process, so I have it here. So this is a process with a one-on-one reference here. So this will, if it was only this line, this would provide the exact same result as what I just showed you. But the things we have to do now to get the right result, for instance, for A1, A3 result, so where your material is factory gate coming at the factory gate. I included here the primary energy renewable used as material, and this figure is indeed coming from the command field. So it is shown here, and I included it here in this process. And I did the same for the non-renewable used as material, but since it is zero, it is zero, so there's no difference there. I noticed that the non-renewable secondary fuels, I think, but maybe Enrico can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think nowhere in the ecoinvent data set there is a value other than zero for that, but I might be mistaken. And then there is the biogenic carbon content, which for the product is listed here. So it is, where was it? Here. So the under properties, the second line shows that it's 61.75 kilograms of biogenic carbon that is in this cubic meter of product. So I copied this value to the biogenic carbon content. And for the packaging, since there is no packaging in this product, it is zero. So what happens, maybe I should also, for it to be complete, I also included under final waste flows the components for reuse, but in this case, and I think in all cases, that is 0 kilograms. So it might be that, of course, in your modeling and in your specific LCA, that it has a value, and then you can include it here, and it will then be part of your results. So with these adaptations, I have this process, and I prepared a calculation setup already where I have the original one and this adapted version. So I press calculate now, and it will take a bit of time because I took the unit processes where all the calculations take place. And when we have these results, you will see that what the differences are, and that should only take a few seconds. And yeah, there it is. And again, I will go to the lower part of the screen because the upper part will be exactly the same because it is a one-on-one the same. And now you see that because I introduced the material components for the both energy categories, so what was used as material, because of the introduction of this primary energy renewable used as material, that the total, of course, is the same in this category, but the energy used as energy is now different compared to the version we just saw. For the non-renewable here, it is the same because all energy that goes in is used as energy and nothing ends up in the material. So therefore, this is correct as a final result. Suppose that this cement bonded wood board would be your product. Now, for the remaining ones, in this case, there is only a difference here because I included the biogenic carbon content of the product in my version of the model. So you see here that it now ends up in the result. And of course, if you have packaging in your packaging, there will be a value here. But this is just to demonstrate the principle. Yeah, I think that is what I wanted to show you. So I can stop presenting, or maybe Ruba, you can take over again.
Thank you, Harry. There are quite some questions. I'm trying to answer.
Yeah, I thank you all for your attention.
Yes, yes, thank you, Harry. Let me see if I can. Yeah, sorry, I just like the slide. Okay, and we can take some of the questions. So what you've been showing, Harry, would it be possible to do the same if you use the system model, or does it have to be with a unit library?
No, I realized I started from the unit model. You could do exactly the same with the system version, but yeah, it's also a preference, to be honest. I always liked to use the unit processes because of what Enrico told you, that you have the insight in where the environmental impact comes from. But from what I showed, the answer to the question is I could have taken the system processes or the system process instead of the unit process with the same results, because it's the same information that is applied. The reason may be good to emphasize that we have to do some, yeah, how do you say, some adaptation, is that unlike the other typical LCA issues like emissions that occur during the production of a process, here we are talking about product-specific characteristics, and that is hard to automatically model in your LCA. So you have to do some adaptations always. So all we could automate, we include it, but you have to do some adaptations when you do your model.
Yeah, okay. And so thank you for that, Harry. And there's a question if there's a general overview about the expected differences, let's say, between the LCIA indicators, between the cutoff and the EN15804. Is there something we can say in terms of how large are the variations? But I feel like you've already mentioned it should be.
I don't have it, to be honest. I did, of course, some sampling, and in general, I think when it comes to the impact categories in general, I have to be very careful. The differences are mostly not that large, but I think Enrico, you might be more able to give a proper answer on this one.
Yeah, indeed. So generally speaking, because of many times the waste processing that we have in cutoff and the EN15804 might coincide. So meaning that sometimes we need to have a waste treatment regardless we have EN15804 or cutoff. So there is not the real big distinction between the end of waste stage and the recyclable. That is the largest distinction between the two system models. But exactly also because of this distinction, sometimes you can have very large differences, like the one that I reported before for the market activities of a recyclable for the cutoff, that is lower, like 2 times lower compared to the one that we have in EN15804. So it's usually EN15804 has larger impacts, because of it needs to include more waste processing in order to meet the end of waste stage. and also that's very dependent on the system model that you are studying, on your own model that you're studying for your EPD or for your product.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you so much. We're kind of finished on time. There are, like I mentioned, a lot of questions, so I really want to thank you. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to answer all of them. Some of them are quite specific, so we will definitely get back to all attendees and give you the answers to these questions. I do also want to mention that, you know, like we always love to have your feedback. So when we send the follow-up email, it will include the slides, the recording, and also a link to a survey, which should take you 5 minutes, but it will help us understand like what you need from ecoinvent, from SimaPro and the services in terms of this data, and as an EPD practitioner. So thank you again for joining us. Big thank you to you, Enrico, and to Harry for the valuable information you shared with us and the engaging discussions. And yeah, we will be following up with the audience coming week. And thank you again and have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you also for having me. And thank to everybody that attended the webinar. Thank Harry. Thank Ruba.
Thanks to
Bye.
all.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.